Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaroi. Ready to go? Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Lili Nishmas Imi Mirosi, Rusbas Mordechai. Today's shir is being sponsored by Yisrael Shalitsky in honor of my Zaydi's 40th yahrzeit, Rabbi Avram Yeshua ben Reb Nochum Zichron Levrocha Yalin. Yud Aleph Tevis. He came from Poland after the Holocaust in America. He was oisig and tzedakah b'chesed. All who knew him respected him greatly. May he be a gute bete for his family and all of Klal Yisrael. I actually forgot to print all this out when I was on the way to the Beis Medrash. I realized I forgot and I ran back home. That's why we're 2 minutes late here. So I didn't print out, I wanted to print out the picture that he sent of his grandfather with the Tolner Rebbe. The neshama should have an aliyah. Oh, sponsored by Uncle Phil for his wife's birthday. I'll read a shtickle thing. Shlomi Rosenberg sponsoring yahrzeit of our grandfather Reb Yankov ben Reb Yitzchok Yosef Halevi Zichroinu Levrocha. The neshama should have an aliyah. Let's see if I can find that email. Oh, also forgot to print it out, so it's on one of these. In honor of the real birthday of my wife. You see, people are doing tshuva, starting to celebrate birthdays. But a true MD Weiner celebrates both, sponsors both, English and Hebrew. Doesn't celebrate the English, but sponsors the English. AKA Aunt Nancy, happy birthday. I'm truly grateful that you married me. You have to know Uncle Phil. This guy's a real piece. He's here in Eretz Yisrael, Baruch Hashem. All our blessings of Shomer Torah family are due to your tefillah, sacrifice, and love. Baruch Hu bless you with only good health, simcha, nachas, arichas yom, to enjoy your children, grandchildren, more generations until 180. With all my love, your most appreciative husband, Phil. But he didn't do tshuva on his name. We got to get him a name. Rabbi say, here goes the email. Oh. You know, especially you, I'm not going to say who I'm talking to, but a lot of people are skeptical about my mises. It's impossible. One guy had so many stories. Not you. Okay, yeah, he's saying not. He believes every single one. You can't use them, but even that one that you said you can't use, you ended up using. For instance, the mice that I fell into the cesspool was used in his book. But nobody believes me, and I told you the story that Simcha Edelman said it's impossible, and then Reb Shmuel Brazil came to Chicago, and Reb Shmuel says, oh, Eli Stefansky, yeah, you know, I saved him from a cesspool. He says, oh, retroactive, mikara, if that story is true, then all the stories are true. So here's another story. Listen to this. Shalom Aleichem Rebellion, the entire America's Daf Yomi Mishpacha. This is from Yochanan Itzkowitz. I love to tell you that I have a wonderful story like everyone else. I started off many years ago, then I stopped, then I saw you on YouTube, and Baruch Hashem, I finished Shas 10 times Be'iyun and have Smicha. But no, that's not my story. Like everyone else, I've been on and off again for the past 17 years, and I just started following your shiurim on YouTube since Pesachim. However, I will say that even though in the past I fell behind and dropped off, being as I can always watch a shir on YouTube, I feel that I'm still watching it live, Baruch Hashem, still keeping up, about a few lot behind. Ooh, okay, we got to make a drasha now. Don't be behind, catch up to everybody, you'll make up those daf later. Okay. Since I started watching, I remember that we were in yeshiva together somewhere, but I forgot when and where. Then I'm Pesachim Daf Lamed Amud Beis. You started telling how you had a Galas Kalim store across from Chaim Berlin. And I immediately remembered where we knew each other from, and I knew the story before you even said it. You see, I was a year or two younger than you, and I was hired there to assist you. But you burned yourself very badly on the second day when you tried to get someone's becher from the bottom of the pot. From that point until Pesach, I took over kashing while you overwatched me from your arm bandaged up. That was my first introduction to kashrus, and I've been involved in Ashgacha since. I just want to let you know that your injury was not in vain. Whenever I train in new mashgichim who are kashing for the first time, I tell them this maisa, without mentioning your name, of course. Why not? It's geschmack. I was an idiot. I chab. Who puts their hand to chap a little becher from the bottom? As an example, but you could say my name. As an example of how careful you must be, because you can get hurt very easily if you're not paying attention. Bli and hara, I've not had any serious injuries from a mashgichim just last year. That's all due to me, of course. After telling this story to new mashgiach was helping me cash our hotel, he thanked me afterwards because he admitted that he thought it was going to be fun. But after he heard this ma'isa, he took it seriously, and Baruch Hashem did not get hurt. So your burn could have saved untold numbers of new mashgichim from getting hurt as well, but it was even worse. Call the entire Daf team for making it. You never know. You know, a little thing happens there. 40 years later, something else. Kol Kavod to you and your entire Daf team for making this success, and may you go, Michael, Yochanan. I was trying to picture who this other guy is. I remember the whole story where it was, and I just can't remember this guy. Maybe he'll send me a picture. So another, by the way, the worst thing that I could do, so if I say, look, Yochanan Itzkowitz was there, and like I used to tell people, I dunked during a game. So who saw it? So I say, there's a guy from Lakewood, whatever his name is. Fine. Nobody believes me. So, but I say Yochanan Itzkowitz, it's good. The worst thing I could do is something like once. Anytime I say a story in front of my wife, say, even my wife was there. Remember that time that there was 7 bad guys and I went karate chopped them all and they all fell down? She says, no, it was only 3 that fell down. The rest were standing straight. So every meiser should in half. All right. Zok Tehillim Gemara Tana Abanan. We're Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph, 6 lines down. Don't get used to this. It's a one-time thing that we are where we need to be. And we're doing these Geshmakadapim now. Mamash Agadata, flying through it. We're talking about matzah hashira. The pasuk says, lechem oini, you have to eat the poor man's bread, made out of 2 ingredients, water and flour. Anything else is considered matzah hashira. Says the Gemara Torah Banon Yochol Yotzal Demidei Choyvas Meiser Sheni BeYerushalayim. No shaykhs to Meiser to matzah hashira. So we have a machlokes here. Meiser Sheni, as we know, I didn't bring the chart because everybody knows about peh. First you take truma, then you take truma smaiser to the Levi 10%, then you take 10% to yourself, called Meiser Sheni. Either you bring it to Yerushalayim and you eat it in Yerushalayim, or you can redeem it. No, oh, I did? No, I didn't leave it here. I brought it home. So I would think, so he doesn't redeem it with money. He brings the actual fruit to Yerushalayim, and he wants to use, with the wheat, he wants to make a matzah. I would think it's okay. So one mandam it says, it has to be a poor man's bread. Only something that you eat when you are a oinen, when a person is a oinen, not you, chas v'shalom. When a person is a oinen, he just lost a loved one that day, whatever the halachas are of aninus, till k'vura that day, yotza zeh she'enu nechal ba'aninus ela b'simcha. What's going on here? So, the pasuk says, Shivas Yom Toichal Olav Matzis Lechem Oini. Now, it's written, interesting, it says, Oni, Ayin Nun Yud. We read it, Oini. That's very similar to this word, Ba'oini. Lo yichalti mimenu ba'oini. Oini is a Lashon Aninos. So, Ayin and Aleph, you're right, the word is Oni, poor, but it's, we pronounce it weird. We don't pronounce it ani. We pronounce it differently than it's written. So therefore, we could darshan it as a lashon of aninos. So anything that you could eat when you're oinen, yatzazeh sheinu nechal ba'aninos elo b'simcha. We even say in the vidui. They say twice in the cycle of the 7 years. You say vidui, and you say Hakadosh Baruch Hu lo yichalti v'oini mimenu. I didn't eat the Meiser Sheni. I promise you, Hashem, I didn't eat it when I was sad, when I was ba'aninos. So therefore, since you can't eat it when you're ba'aninos, so you can't make a matzah out of it. Oini, oini. That's why, if you think, it's not stam the Gemara is playing with the words, oh, oni. I'm taking a word oni. It should be oini. There's no aleph there. It's telling you, why did the Torah, why do we read it weird? Shiva Zon Dechal Olav Matzis Lechem Oni. Ani, what's wrong with that? Why can't we just read it normally? Ani, like it's written. To teach us this limud, we say it weirdly, Aini, because it's connected to Aini with the Aleph. So that's Rabbi Yossi Aglili. However, Rabbi Akiva's mechulik, and we should remember this, Rabbi Akiva from Amud Beis, Rabbi Akiva Omer, Matzois, Riba. This is the 2nd or 3rd time we're using this limud, the Matzois, comes to include Meiser Sheni. So Meiser Sheni is okay. If I bring my wheat to Yerushalayim, I can make a nice matzah out of it and eat it. It's mine to do with what I want to do with it, and I could also make matzahs with it. Imkein, matam aloy ma'lechem oini. So then why does the Torah say it funny? Pradli iso sheni loisho b'yayim v'shemnu dvash. So this comes to exclude what we call a matzah ashira. It's dough that you used instead of water, you used wine, oil, or honey. And what's the problem with that? Not because because it becomes chametz very quickly. By the time of the Rebbe Kiva, why doesn't he learn like Rebbe Saglili, Oini, Miksiv Lechem Oini with a Vav? Ani Ksiv, Rebbe Saglili, Mikarinan, Ani, Oini Karinan. Rebbe Saglili goes by the way you read it, Rebbe Kiva goes by the way it's written, and it's written without a Vav. Rebbe Kiva, Haida Karinan, Oini Kedishmo. So then why do we read it differently? This is the bread that there's many things said on it. You say on it halal, you say on it the Haggadah. You talk a lot about this bread. This bread caused a lot of stuff in Klal Yisrael. Because we have matzahs, we have Leil Seder, we talk about it, we say halal on it. And that's why I mentioned last night, the Har Yashir says in the Mishnah, Eilu Dvar. Now you could understand a little bit better. He asks, why does it say in the following Mishnah, Eilu Yerakos that you make maror? Yeraka is great. What's the word Elu Advarim? It should say Elu Matzah Shadam, Elu Chitim, Elu flour that you make matzah from. Elu Dvarim. So he says because of this Gemara, Dvarim Harbe were said about a matzah. Oops, okay, a vart. So the Gemara. V'savar Rebbe Kiva Isa Sheniloisha B'Yayim V'Shemen Eloi. Does Rebbe Kiva in fact hold that if you knead the dough with wine and the other things, it's not good for matzah v'tanyo? Ein loshen isa v'pesach b'yayim v'shemen udvash. The Tanna Kama says you cannot use wine, oil, and honey. Vim losh. And what happens if you do need it? You burn it right away. Says Rashi on the spot. You can't burn it on Yom Tov. We're talking about Chalav Moed. You have to burn it. Why? Because I'm concerned that before you have the chance to throw it into the oven, it became chametz. Chacham say you could eat it. You were careful. You put it in the oven before it became chametz. I once spent entire Pesach by Rebbe Eliezer and Rebbe Yeshua. I did exactly what we're discussing here. I needed the dough. They saw me pouring in the wine, the kedem, grit stuff, and the this. They saw it. They didn't say a word. And then the Brisa continues, so even though you cannot knead it, but once you're done kneading it, you have a beautiful bread, you smear the top, like with the eggs, you do it with wine. We're not concerned that that's going to make it chametz. It says here, Rebbe Kiva holds, you could do lisha with wine, oil, and honey. So what's this? The Brisa explains that mikatvim boy, that I'm allowed to smear the top, it goes according to Tanna Kama. Fine. Even though the Tanna Kama says you cannot do lisha with wine, but I could do kituf with wine. Whatever you could knead with, you could do kituf. In other words, water. If I could use water to do kneading, so I could smear the top with water. Since I could not do lisha with wine oil, then you cannot. You can't smear the top. B'shavim, but everybody agrees. You cannot use warm water because warm water will cause it to be machmetz, to ferment. So we have a stira. Rebbe Kiva Bayo says you cannot do lisha with wine. Over here it says I was over there, I did it, and nobody said a word to me. In other words, you could do lisha with wine. Loi kashyo. Habi antav rishain. There's a mitzvah to eat matzah, so remember this. This is very important. It doesn't even say, if you notice, it doesn't say the word Leil HaSeder. It says Yontav Rishon. Some Rishonim want to be medayik from it. That what? We'll see in a second. Yontav Rishon, Yontav Sheni. Yontav Rishon, to be yoyt to the mitzvah matzah on Leil HaSeder, I need lechem oini. I can't have any wine in it, honey in it. Doesn't work. That's not lechem oini. But it doesn't make it chametz. I could throw it into the oven before it becomes chametz. Two dinim here. To be yaitza, the mitzvah of matzah, I cannot be yaitza. Even if I put it into the oven and it's not chametz, I can't be yaitza because it has wine in it. To be over the isser of chametz, I'm not over because there's a way to get around chametz. It's not chametz. Just because I put wine in it becomes chametz. It takes, instead of 18 minutes, it takes 5 minutes, let's say. So I'll throw it into the oven within 5 minutes. It's still kosher l'pesach. It's just not kosher l'seder. So that's the two Rebbe Akivas. Where Rebbe Akiva said you can't, he was talking about Yom Tov Rishon. And during Chol HaMoed, he was doing it and nobody said a word to him. Like Rabbi Yeshua, some Goyres, Rabbi Shmuel Levi, Yoyma Kamalei Tlushali B'Chalava. For the Leil HaSeder, make sure you don't put any milk into the matzah. That would be a very interesting matzah. Leil HaSeder, you have all the meat and everything. You have milchik matzah. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying don't use milk. Why? Because of lechem oini. But from here on out, you could. So Votanya, but we learned ein loshen is isa b'chalav.
To let part of Pesach and not the other part, you're not worried that they're going to mix it up.
What about everybody that only uses shmur? Not everybody, but a lot of people makbid on the 3 round shmur matzahs and not the box matzah.
Then it's very strange that you would let part of.
You stop asking. They should make a gzeira.
Yeah, of course. What do you mean? We make gzeira for million things. Here on Pesach, we're not making a gzeira. It's a very strange thing.
Okay. What's strange for you doesn't mean it's strange for me. I'm not asking to you strange. Yeah, but you can't decide when to make xeris. 5 minutes is enough to throw it into the oven. Why don't you make a xera? 18 minutes is enough, but 5 is not. I don't know what it is. It's less than 18. Maybe it's 10 minutes. Who knows? So Nachama. So we have a kash here. Votanya, the first question that should come to mind. Votanya, in Lashon HaSeisa B'Chalav. You're not allowed to make bread, period. The whole year, you can't make bread with milk. You can't make milk bread. Why? Because you might come to eat it with meat. And if you do it, it's asur. You might come to eat meat with it. He's not talking about milk. He's talking about honey. Maybe they're similar. Whatever. What's Ka'ayin Torah? What's Ka'ayin Torah? So in English they say this. It's a bullseye. The size of this eye. If you have matzah, you make matzah the size of this eye, then I'm not concerned that you're going to eat it with meat or whatever. You're going to eat it right away. Small. Ka'ayin Torah Shari. Ka'ayin Torah. I should read it. Ka'ayin Torah Shari. Like the eye, not Ka'ain. Ka'ayin Torah Shari, like the eye of an ox is okay. Hochinami, Ka'ain, Ka'ayin Torah. Okay, I know, by me also it said Ka'ain, but I don't know. Fine. What? You could also make milchik if you do it a funny shape, like here in Israel. You make it a rectangle, you put some... So this is Rashi says because it's not, for whatever reason, it's not gonna stick around long. Okay, so the bottom line is halacha l'maisa.
Rashi said that's the size of the eye, and Rambam said that's the shape.
Right. Okay. The Rambam says it's the shape. Okay. Very good. So talking about the Rambam, very, very interesting halacha. The Rambam says that it's asur to eat matzah ashira. If you hold that matzah ashira is okay the rest of the days, it's asur to eat it on the first entire day. Not just Leil HaSeder. Why? Because you have to show a differentiation between lechem oini and matzah ashira. That's what he says. Unbelievable chiddush. And Memela, the Brisker Rav, took that Rambam, the Beis Halevi, the Brisker Rav, and said that you cannot eat gebroks on the first day. You can't dip in and make it ashira, like a knedel, something like that. They wouldn't eat knedlach on the first day because to be makbid on the Rambam. And talking about Litvaks that are makbid on gebroks, Rabbi Kotler, who established Lakewood Yeshiva, Torah in America, he was makbid on gebroks, period, the whole Pesach, but not because of the gebroks thing, but he said that the Gra says that you mekayim the mitzvah of matzah all Pesach long if you eat a kazayis matzah. And once you soak it, then you lose that, then it's not lechem oini anymore. So you're not mekayim the mitzvah. So in order to be mekayim the mitzvah of matzah, he was makbid not to do shruya. And there's a Ma'ir Dikemais I want to share with you from Reb Chaim Sanzer. Chaim Tzanzer, he had his mother over for Lela Seder. And she wasn't makbid on gebroxt. She started dipping her matzah in the soup. And the Hasidim that were there, they looked at her, they were staring at her like, what's geht the for? What's the mother of the Rebbe? So Reb Chaim Tzanzer saw this, and he took his matzah and he dipped it into the soup, and he ate it. So now the Hasidim went crazy. It's like, Rebbe Mayhai. He said, the mitzvah of kibbud av v'eim is a doiraisa, and gebrox is a minog. Azay get the maisa, tremendous maisa. So you tell it to Chassidim, they won't believe the maisa. It's like a maisa shkemataya. But one of Mendy Auerbach's, what? Avi wants to know if men and women are on the same table. Revoke his privileges right now, Gary.
No, it's a very good question that he's asking.
It kind of
slugs up the story. It's a very good question. Avi, well done.
But I got to tell you this. This is one of my favorite lines from Mendy Auerbach. He loves this thing, and he says, how do you know that halacha is not as strong as a minhag? How do you know a minhag is stronger than halacha? It's very pashut. The halacha is that if you borrow money, you have to return it. But the minhag is not to return it. All right. Mendy, they got a good laugh here. Vishavin shein loshen is isla b'poishrim. Now everybody agrees, going back to that sugya, that everybody agrees that you're not permitted to use warm water with dough. Now, when you bring a mincha, you bring 40 breads, 30 of them are matzah. Matzah, you have to be careful with the hilchas matzah. You can't make a matzah for Leila Seder with warm water. How can you make a matzah for the Beis Hamikdash? This nan kol hamenachos niloishes b'poishrim. You could use warm water when you make a mincha. Umishtamrim shlo yechmitzu. Umishtamrim shlo yechmitzu. And you make sure that they don't become chametz. Im Amru, says the Gemara, okay, not such a big kasha. Im Amru b'zrizim, Shas is full of this. Kohanim are zrizim. They know how to be careful. They'll be careful. But you're telling the entire Klal Yisrael to do something. You have people that don't know anything. And they don't know how to be careful. You tell this few Kohanim that work in the Beis HaMikdash, be careful. They know how to be careful. They're professionals. But you can't tell all of Klal Yisrael, the whole tzibur, and be sure that nothing's going to happen. So let them soak it in the water. The Kohanim are very careful. Let them soak the kernels, and then they'll pound it a little bit. It'll be a much better product. When it comes to the mincha, you don't soak in the water. Says the Gemara, lisha bizrizin isa, l'sisa, less of his reason. The l'sisa, what happens? The Yisrael, when he brings the mincha, he brings the flour to the Beis Hamikdash. It's already a done product. The l'sisa happens in his house, so you can't be careful in his house. Anything that's done under the watch of the kohanim, I could be okay with. V'lisha mi'isa bezrizin. And what about the kneading of the mincha? V'ksiv v'yotzak oleh shemen v'hevi oleh kohen mikmitza v'elech mitzvahs kuhuna. Limeid al yitzika, the pouring of the oil. U'blila shiksher b'chaladam. Rashi is saying, is talking about the menachas that you bake. I found this, I couldn't believe this. Before I had Gary, wow, I miss you, Gary. When we were learning Mesechtes Menachos, I got to show you what a chart looked like. I can't explain to you how hard this is. Today, or it'll take me 3 minutes. Then Gary comes along to says, by the way, there's something called a computer. It's like, really? It's like, yeah, you could do different colors, everything. And if you make a mistake, you could erase it and put it back, and you could take 6. If I made a mistake here, 6 instead of 7, all over again. Sitting with a magic marker, kilo, like this is my ktav, you know what I'm saying? So this is it. So somewhere around there, number 4, yitzika, you put a little bit more shemen. It doesn't really fit into what we're talking because this is a different mincha perhaps. Rashi might be going according to the Braisa. Paisis psisim. Bekitzer, here's Levina. Jonathan Yishkoich, I don't know if you watched the shir last night, but Jonathan gave me real frankincense. Finally. So I have the real thing. It's in a bag. It's mwah. Yeah, gewaldig. Anyways, Yishkoich Gary, I love you, man. So teaching me about the computer and how to even use it. He taught me the whole thing. All right, Zog the Gemara.
People who want to buy the old charts.
No. It's It's not for sale. Zog the Gemara. So you see that they could also do the blila. What are you telling me? Lisha. They could do lisha. Why are you telling me that only the kohen can do it? Says the Gemara, lisha nihid is reason lesser. Even a Yisrael could do the lisha, the kneading. But mokim is reason issa. It has to be in the Beis Hamikdash. Oh, once you're in the Beis Hamikdash, now they're watching you. We'll make sure you won't make a chametz. Domar the lila ksher bizar. Chutz l'chaymes azara psula. So inside the azara it's okay, but outside the azara it's not okay. La puke l'sisa, but to soak the kernels, the enab is reason, the leib b'mokim is reason. That's something you can do at home, so nobody's watching the guy. Memela, it's no good. Umayshna meminchas ha'omer. Minchas ha'omer, Rabbi Yisai again. So Rabbi Yisai, I have to tell you about Yashan again. So Yashan, now I'm not going to tell you, but if anybody started being makban on Yashan, let me know. I'd love to hear from a chassid, especially if he started being slightly makban. I'm not saying. Look, fine. My daughter just told me yesterday. I was this woman that has a lot of followers on Instagram. She went into a gas station, like one of these Frum gas stations, and she bought a Hershey bar. So the guy behind the counter says, "Why are you buying a Hershey bar? This kosher pashka stuff. What are you doing?" So my daughter said, I said, "No, that's the halacha. At the end of the day, even if you're not makbin a cholav stam, but if you have it right there." And then my wife came in and said, "But it's not Hershey's." She's right. It's you only if it's cream cheese and cream cheese, butter and butter. But if it's Hershey's but Pashkas is better, because Rabbi Moshe Pashkas, yeah, Avada. I took Pashkas as an example, but other things, fine. But it's not the same. What she's saying is not the same. You have Swiss chocolate, which there's somebody what? She's making fun, Kilo. Like, I wanted to buy a Hershey bar, and this guy behind the counter is giving me a hard time. I want my Hershey bar. What do you want? And this guy is telling her the halacha. He says, no, this kosher. Go to the kosher. No, but neither did my daughter. Says the Gemara, the mincha that you bring on the second day of on the day of Pesach, you bring the omer. From that day on, you could eat the new crop. So you could do l'sisa, you could soak it. You pile it up so that the water comes out. Tzibur shani. Now, since it's done communally, it's for the ganze, the whole kahal, so they put a bezdin there and they make sure everything is done correctly. Al pi halacha. Tana Rabban. I have a riddle here. I want to see on the chat who gets this. How much bikurim do you have to bring to the kohen? Bikurim is the first of. Don't say anything. If you're here in the basement, don't say anything. The first of the Shivas Haminim, here's Shivas Haminim, the wheat and the grape, the first fruit that come out, you have to give to the kohen. How much? Anybody? Elu dvarim she'elam shiur. Hapeyav avikurim, there is no shear. Now, it's good to give the kohen a nice basket. You mechabed him. Who got it? Anybody? Anybody get it on the chat? Noam? No?
Everyone's talking Hershey still.
I was guessing that somebody from like YU, like Lawrence Spiegelman, I don't know, one of those guys, Dr. Mazenkis. David Feinberg, come on, you didn't come up with this. We say it every single day. And somebody asks you a simple kasha. What's pshat?
I can slug it up.
Okay, you can slug it up. You're a lumdisha, so you can slug it up. Great, I like it. Shir the Rabbana. Torah Rabbana on Yochel Yod Adam.
There's a whole lot of Gemara, which is side chatter. Over here, we're talking about now selling in stores. We're talking about living. There's like a whole lot of Gemara.
We got to shut down the chat. Rabbi, if you're not going to pay attention to the shir, we're shutting down the chat. You got to focus here. Chat is whatever. Torah Rabbana on Yochel Yod Adam Nechavasi Bibikurim. I would think that we got to go. We only have 15 minutes. There's a kohen that receives bikurim from Yisrael, and part of those bikurim, what's number 1 and 2? This is the chart from Oy Vey. No, that's just the email. You don't have to pay. This is the chart. Der Chagav. It says Eretz Eretz. So, if the famous question: what comes first when you're making a bracha? A date or a fig, a date, because it's the second in line from the second eretz, where this is the fourth in line. Not Negea to now. That's when we get back in 7 years to brachas. Anyway, so he has bikurim. Could he make a matzah out of it? I would think yes. It has to be a matzah they eat all over the world. Yatzu bikurim she'ein nechal b'chol mishvei ela b'Yerushalayim. Bikurim is only in Yerushalayim. Rabbi Akiva doesn't argue with Rabbi Yisai Galili. He just has another source. Matzah umarar. It says in the pasuk, Al matzah sumroyer yochlu. So here's the connection. Matzah to mar. So whatever matzah has, mar has. Ma mar sheni bikurim. Just like mar. You don't bring bikurim from horseradish or lettuce or whatever you eat from mar. Af matzah sheni bikurim. So matzah also, that's how I know that matzah cannot be from bikurim. Ima mar shein b'minoi bikurim. So if so, mar, the whole min is not in there. Af matzah shein b'minoi bikurim. Maybe you shouldn't make matzah out of wheat and barley. You should make it out of oats. We're turning to Daf Yomi Beis. Oy tzichidim soyim sheyesh b'minoi bikurim. Tamaloymar matzahis matzahis ribo. Once again, the third time we have the riboy for matzahis matzahis, to include chitim v'so'irim for matzah. That's Rabbi Akiva in the beginning. So you should be married by everything and say that even if somebody gave you bikurim, bring those bikurim as matzah. Forget about the min, not just the chita and the so'ira, but the actual bikurim themselves. We said a second ago, you cannot bring matzah from bikurim. Why not? Matzahs, matzahs. Says the Gemara, Hadar bei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva has charata from his drasha, matzahs, matzahs, and he darshans Rabbi Yossi Aglili's drasha, b'chol meshvei seichem, that it has to be something that you eat everywhere, and bikurim you only eat in Yerushalayim. The Sanya. I have to say hello to at least one person. Rabbi Ezra Abrams from Melbourne, Australia. Thank you. So that's Rabbi Yisagli's drasha. Now we had a machlokes. We started off the day. Machlokes, could you use meiser sheni for matzah? Rabbi Yisagli says no. Rabbi Akiva says yes. So now maybe I should include meiser sheni. Tamaloymer matzis riba. No, meiser sheni is not a problem because I have a special riboy matzis. So now, I have one pasuk that says b'chol mishvei seichem. It could mean to exclude bikurim, I could only eat in Yerushalayim, or it could exclude ma'aser shein, I could only eat in Yerushalayim, and you're only excluding one out of the two. Who decided which one? There's a certain situation that ma'aser sheini could eat everywhere. There's never a situation that bikurim could eat all over the world. Only ma'aser sheini in one case. Here's the problem. Very interesting halacha. Once you bring ma'aser sheini into Yerushalayim, it gets locked in Yerushalayim. You can never take it out of Yerushalayim, and you can never redeem it. So don't bring your fruit. When Mashiach comes, don't bring your fruit into Yerushalayim. Think that, maybe if I can't eat it, I'll redeem it. You can't do it anymore. It gets locked and you can't bring it home. You can't even try to sell it on a different market. However, it became tamei. So that's a nice trick. You can make it tamei. It's awesome. You can't carry it. But we darshan differently. When did we have this pasuk? Last week. By Yosef Atzadik, he gave them food. So the word masos is a relation to food. Anyway, says the Gemara, so what's the raya? Man Shabbos Leidama Ma'aser Sheni Nofik Bey. On Amud Aleph, who's the one that told us that you could use Ma'aser Sheni for matzah? Rabbi Akiva. And he's the one right over here in this brayso. He's the one, it goes together. The one that says that you use matzah for Ma'aser Sheni is the one that says, he's using Rabbi Yossi Aglili's drasha b'chol mishvei seichem and not Matzu Marar, that Hekesh. So in other words, he had charata from his own drasha. He went with Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Shema mina hadar bei. He regretted it. He retracted. So why doesn't Rabbi Yossi Aglili learn from the other pasuk, Lechem Oini. He himself learns from Lechem Oini on Amud Aleph. So how come he doesn't learn here from Lechem Oini that you can't use Bikurim? Misha Nechel Ba'oini. Only foods that you could eat ba'aninos when a person loses a loved one, anything that you could eat that day that he can make matzah from. Same way you learned Meiser Sheni. Savalei Reb Shimon, because there is the Tana called Reb Shimon, Shim Ba'yachai. The Sanyo Bikurim Asurim La'oinen, Reb Shimon Matir. He holds that Bikurim are mutter ta'oinen. So maybe you can't learn anything from Oini. My time of the Rabbanon, so why the Rabbanon say you cannot eat Bikurim? D'chsiv leisucha lecho b'shorecha v'omer mar trumas yodecha elu bikurim de'iskash bikurim lemaiser. Bikurim v'lokach akoyin atenem yodecha, and it says over here, not in red. Leisucha lecho b'shorecha maiser degoncha u'trumas yodecha yad yad. So there's a hekesh. V'omer mar trumas yodecha elu bikurim. So, right over here, the pasuk, I took out a bunch of it so it could fit on the page. Loisucha lecha b'shorecha, meiser degoncha, meiser, utrumas yodecha. What's truma? What does truma mean? Says the Gemara, trumas yodecha, elu bikurim. This is referring to bikurim, you'd never know it. It doesn't say bikurim, it says trumas yodecha. The itgash bikurim l'mais yodecha. Ma meiser also lo'inen, av bikurim also lo'inen. So just like this is asr ta'inen, so to this is asr ta'inen. They're both asr to somebody who lost a loved one that day. So that's chachamim. That's why they say that the first day of aninos or aninos is asr b'bikurim. And memela, according to them, fine. But according to Rabbi Yosef Glili, he holds like Reb Shimon that it's mutter and he cannot learn out lechem oini. Reb Shimon, truma karin rachmana kitruma. Since the Torah uses this interesting word, utrumas yodecha, so it's like truma, he says. Matruma muteres la'inen, avikurim muter la'inen. Reb Shimon, he did the hekesh, leslei, simcha miyah michtav ksivabu. Time out. You don't need a hekesh. It says, mefurish in the pasuk, d'chsiv, v'samachta b'chol ha'toiv. You should be happy with everything that Kodesh Baruch Hu gives you. Says the Gemara, Ahu lizman simchu da'asa. I want to just pause here for a second. This pasuk, v'samachta b'chol ha'toiv, that Kodesh Baruch Hu is telling you, you should be happy with everything you have. There's a medrash that says that Eliyahu came to a very poor person. And he said, how are you doing? He says, it can't be worse. I'm so poor, it can't be worse. Following day, this poor person goes to collect his money in his typical place. And right there comes another ani. He can't believe his eyes. His parnasa was just cut in half. A few pennies he was going to make, cut in half. He says, wow, can't get any worse. And the next day, something else happened, and something else. Finally, he realized that Eliyahu Navi, whoever it was, is trying to hint to him something. So he said, something bad happened. He says, Baruch Hashem, I have what I have. And it could get worse. It could get worse. And from that day on, it started getting better. So if you look at the Chovos HaLevavos, you learn from the Chovos HaLevavos that the relationship that we have between each other, Ben Al Chaveroi, is how we're supposed to deal with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with us. So when a person gives something to someone, he expects them to say thank you, appreciate it. If they're not appreciative, most likely it's not going to happen again. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the same way, says the Chovos HaLevavos, or at least you give him daik like that. Thank you. That's why I said thank you to you, Gary. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'samachta b'chal ha'toiv, be appreciative of what we have. Everything. We're married, children, whatever. If we have, we don't have. Whoever you are, whatever you have 2 hands, 2 feet, eyes, you're able to breathe. V'samachta b'chal ha'toiv. So we have to be b'simcha. The Torah tells us, v'samachta b'chal ha'toiv. It's just a lesson of hakaras ha'toiv, moedim anachnu loch. Fine. Shkoyach, hakaras ha'toiv. Yeah, hakaras ha'toiv. Like that guy. I don't know if you were on last night. I think he's a bacher. He sent in, I don't want to say the amount. Mamish, he said, but I don't have money, whatever. This is a symbolic, hakaras ha'toiv. Beautiful. I said, move me more than the $1,000 gift. Says the Gemara, this pasuk v'samachta b'chal ha'toiv ahul is man simchu dasa. There's a certain time, if you picture how they lived in those days, they worked the fields, and all of a sudden the crop comes out. Can you imagine the simcha? Some years it's not matzliach. Look, So there's a tremendous amount of time that they had simcha. And the trick is to take that simcha of gashmios and pour it into ruchnios. Yeah, to make that connection. Like Fischl. Yesterday, if you weren't on, Fischl is starting to dedicate the Mishnayos. Why? Because he had hatzlacha in his gashmios, and he made that connection to ruchnios. This is not matzeres v'adachag. Very interesting. You could bring bikurim, but when do you say the psukim? Matzeres from Shavuos v'adachag until Sukkos. That's when he has the main simcha. Maybe v'koyre, that's when he brings bikurim and he says all the psukim. Me'achag v'ad Chanukah, but from Sukkos to Chanukah, maybe very koyre. You don't have that simcha anymore. That's not the zman simcha. Torah Rabbanon lechem oini prat lecholut ulashisha. It says in the pasuk oini, it has to be a poor man's bread. So not a bagel. Can't bring bagels for the Seder. Why? It's cooked. Not cooked. It has to be baked in the oven. Vila shisha. Shisha is like a nice size geschmacka donut, a nice bread. Can't use that for matzah. How do you know Ashisha means something big, chashav? D'chsiv. By the Chanukas Abayis, we made the, what? Oh, I skipped. Shkoyach. I think that has to be something that you took the whole hadar from it, all the beauty from it. Meaning, you took the bran. It has bran. You took all the good stuff. Again, for the fourth time. Matzis riba. Shlomo Melech had the most refined flour, the best of the best. You can make matzah out of that. You can't have scalded bread. If you look in Rashi says by cholot, he said, it's kalider. It's scalded. It's a lashon of scalded. Ula ashisha comes to exclude a beautiful bread. What do we see that in the word? Ashisha means chashav. D'chsiv, vayichalig l'chol ha'am, Shlomo Melech, by the Chanukas Habayis, gave everybody in Klal Yisrael a gift. L'chol ha'am Yisrael, l'mi'ish v'adisha, every single person, even women. L''ish chalas lechem achas, he gave a bread, ve'eshbar echad, ve'ashisha echas. V'omer Rav Chanan bar Abba, ashifar. What's ashifar? So he plays with the words. Eshpar, echad mishisha bapar. The sixth of a cow. Ashisha, echad mishisha be'efa. It's a sixth of an efa. Upliga de Shmuel, and he argues on Shmuel. Domer Shmuel, ashisha garba de chamra. It's not a solid measurement, but it's a liquid measurement. It's a shisha garba de chamra. It's one jug of wine. D'chsiv, vayaveh ashishei anovim. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Shem Elois me'amkim v'sicha adinoi. Adinoi shemam kalid yin zacham shemam zacham adinoi. Adinoi tzishmo yo. Yuchas t'chol deman t'vorei. Yisad negitson nafshid v'rei yecholti. Ashil adinoi shemam aboiker shemam aboiker. Huh?